It is time to check in with Chris Dimakos, our CJAD 800 legal contributor. And Chris, I'm reading the topic we're going to talk about today, and I'm actually, I'm a little disappointed to find out what employers apparently are up to these days, trying to get rid of employees. And I know we've talked about, sort of the issue before, but employers are having, in some cases, a tough time as well. It's understandable. But these sort of tactics that you're about to describe, I would never have expected that. I thought employers were going to, give you everything you were entitled to and do this the right way when they have to let you go because they're not happy about having to let you go. But that's apparently not what's going on here, right? They are looking to reduce the cost of firing employees, and they're using some pretty, sad tactics. So go ahead and tell us what's going on here.
Right. So, when times were good and the economy was rolling and the labor market was healthy, an employer wanted to terminate an employee and it didn't have, just cause to let them go, they would have to pay what usually is the calculation that we use for these severance packages, 2, 3, 4 weeks per year of service. And right now what's happening is when the employer gets to that point where they say, okay, we're going to let this person go, and they look at what that costs, they're saying, well, we don't want to do that. So is there any way we can let them go and not have to pay them that money? And what lawyers are advising them to do is if that's what you want to do, well, you want to kind of change the circumstances as to when you want to cause that break. So for instance, if someone is a good employee and they're making $150,000 a year, well, we want to fire them under different circumstances. Can we fire them when they're not making the same salary? Can we fire them when they don't have the same position and maybe have a lesser performance? So they use what is called a quiet exit. So they might not fire you, but they're going to tell you that we got to reduce your salary. We got to change your position. We're not going to have you be responsible for the same amount of things at the office. You're going to be responsible for much less. And they put you into a corner where you don't really get dealt with. So, and they let that happen for 3 or 4 months. And then when they decide to let you go, the circumstances at that point, it's like you take a picture of it, they're much different than when, you were going to get let go 3 months or 4 months prior when you were making more money, had more responsibility, and it would have cost the company a lot more. So it's called a quiet exit. They build files. There's different things that they want to do, but the sole objective here is to take you from where you currently are, salary, responsibility, performance, and bring you lower to a point where it would cost a lot less money to let you go. And hopefully the big bonus is you decide to say, I'm not going to stick around for this. I'm just going to leave, and you walk away. Yeah. And that's the ultimate goal. That would be the biggest bonus of all. But we're starting to see a lot of that right now. Companies saying, are we going to pay someone to leave, a year and a half of salary for them just to walk out the door? Isn't there any way around that? And we're starting to see them take active strategies to not only reduce what you're making, reduce what your responsibilities are, but ultimately hoping you would leave on your own will. But if not, when we do decide to let you go, it's going to be worth a lot less.
So is that what this icing out refers to, what you're describing?
Yeah, absolutely. So icing out is a way where they basically start taking things away from you, taking titles away from you, taking responsibilities away from you. And most employees say, hey, you're pushing me out the door here. This is constructive dismissal. I'm going to file a complaint. The problem, though, is when that employee goes to sit down with a lawyer and says, hey, look what you're doing here. They've reduced my salary by 20%. They've taken away my responsibilities, and I'm doing only this right now. I'm not in charge of a team of 5 employees anymore. Isn't that constructive dismissal? And the lawyer will tell them, well, nothing's guaranteed. It does seem like it. You'd have to have enough evidence to show that it's constructive dismissal. And then the employee then has to take a risk and say, do I have enough here to win in court, or do I just stay and watch how this thing plays out? And it's that hesitation that employers are banking on. They want you to have that uncertainty and not be assured that, hey, I'd be successful if I challenge this, so that you just keep accepting what they're doing. And the longer that continues and the longer that situation or new situation persists, the worse off your situation gets when they actually do decide to let you go.
Okay, so let's assume, though, you're that employee and this is happening to you as you just described it, Chris, And you obviously realize something is going on, right? You sort of see where this is heading. You've been there for a while, and there's no reason for this to be going on. You're still doing your job. You're performing. You're reaching your targets, whatever. Can you go to the employer and say, look, I see what's happening here. Can we try to saw this off before it gets to the point where I'm going to basically lose my job?
I'm a firm advocate. I say that all the time. I say that when it comes to your job. I talk to that with my kids. I was like, just go up to your teacher and have a conversation with them. You know, if you're not happy with your grade, that is the best. The problem, Aaron, is more often than not, there is a relationship there, and there are this subordination aspect where they're worried, they're nervous, they're not sure if they're going to say the right thing, and many employees are not comfortable doing that. But you're absolutely right. If you are comfortable doing that, if you have the confidence to be able to sit down with the superior and say, "Look, I see what's going on here. I don't want to play this game. Can we have a conversation? If you guys don't want me here, let's talk about how this is going to work, how I can exit this company. We'll talk about what I need, what you guys need, and then that would be ideal." The problem is, having met with hundreds and hundreds of employees who are in this situation, they don't feel comfortable often enough, and they feel like what they say is going to be used against them, and they may make a mistake, so they're just not comfortable with that circumstance.
But what if at that stage, rather than you, okay, let's say you're that employee who's uncomfortable getting to, to talk to that employer once you realize what's going on. What if at that point, when you recognized what was happening, you went and talked to a lawyer and said, look, this is what's happening at my work. Would that be time for a lawyer to get involved with the company, or is there nothing they could do at that stage?
Yeah, they absolutely could. What I always tell the people that come to see me, I always mention to them, their instincts are the ones that are the most accurate. They're in there every day. They know how it works at the company. They know the personalities that are there. And if they have a feeling that this is what's going on, more often than not, that's exactly what's going on. And then you start using a counter strategy. For instance, if there is a decision that's taken where you're being iced out, where you've changed the position, you can object to that. You can send an email to your superior saying, here are the reasons why I think that move wasn't justified. And you object to it. And anytime you show that you were not okay with a decision and you didn't accept it, even if you're there and it's under protest, what the courts do is they say, look, this employee was well aware of what was going on when this was happening. It's not like they accepted it. It's not like they agreed with you when you reduced their salary. They were opposed to it. And although they had no choice but to stay there because they had to feed their kids and they just couldn't leave, there was no question that the employee identified that this was a practice that was illegal, and they didn't agree with it. So if they go and see a lawyer when that's happening, you develop a strategy, and that can mean being upfront about it and responding, and they can help you write those emails, and they can help you send those messages. Or even it's a question of getting more information. The lawyer might say, you know what, why don't you go and try and get some figures for us and some statistics about your performance and your objectives and your goals and what your sales were and your commissions compared to other sales reps. There's a lot of things you can do at that point. But the first most important part is recognize that it's happening. If you know that it's happening, then you can address it. The problem is what they try to do is kind of make it a blurred line where you're not sure. Is this is it really because we're having economic trouble, or is this because they want to push me out the door?
Yeah, and not have to pay you what they owe you in terms of compensation.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Chris, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Aaron.
iHeartRadio is throwing it back.
2010s, the decade.
To the days of huge hits and unforgettable anthems. A non-stop stream of the biggest and best.
Drake, Rihanna, Beyonce, Katy, Gaga, The Weeknd,
and more. All your decade-defining favorites, all in one place.
Hi, it's Katy Perry.
Hey, it's Bruno Mars.
This is Kesha.
Find 2010's The Decade on the free iHeartRadio app. Preset the station so it's always one tap away.